All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. As people who listen to the show know, the primary focus of Witchpolice Radio is talking to artists from Manitoba, but I also branch out and talk to people who are in, I guess you could call it the Manitoba diaspora, which is like people who are from Manitoba or have deep roots in the community in this province or ties to the province. And the guest on this episode is someone like that who is a Winnipegger, but a displaced Winnipegger. So I think the best way to start I don't know if you consider yourself displaced, but I think the best way to start this is if you introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what it is you're doing musically, and then we can sort of talk about how you ended up where you are and what you're working on now.
Right. Word. My name is Sammy B. We're talking about a hip hop project that I'm currently doing called the Dog Dad Posse. And I definitely consider myself Manitoba diaspora. I've been to Winnipeg themed nights on College Street.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, me and my current partner met in a bar that Dan from The Watchmen owns.
Okay, yeah.
I feel it. I feel it all the time. It makes me feel like James Joyce, like I'm out there exploring Europe, but Winnipeg is my Ireland. That's my fucking home. That's where I grew up.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that's I always wonder about that because I think within Winnipeg, especially within the music scene, there's a tendency to think that what we have is something special or unique to Winnipeg because it's so insular and it's so incestuous. Everyone's in each other's bands and everyone knows each other. Yeah. So it's always interesting to hear from the perspective of someone who is living outside of the city, outside of the province, and what their view on Winnipeg is. Like, does Winnipeg have a reputation outside of the perimeter?
It has a personality. It definitely has uniqueness. Everywhere has uniqueness, but there's something I realized when I left Winnipeg that affects all kinds of musical culture and art culture. There's no garages in big cities.
Oh yeah.
That aren't as old and as spread out as the prairie cities are. So yeah. So there's no back lanes, and there's no garages, so then there's no garage bands, and there's no drum kits sitting in the basement because people don't have that space.
Yeah.
Other places.
So the way they create is different because they just have the access to different tools and space for different tools, for sure.
Yeah. And the environment that you're living in, so your songs are about that. Your songs are about your experience in the environment. It's like commenting on a very different place, environmentally and the nature and the weather.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, not to mention the flatness. Everywhere I go, I'm comparing it to Winnipeg, where I learned about everything.
Yeah. Well, so how did you end up where you are now? Because I mean, we met each other more than 20 years ago when we were in high school, and I was in a ska band, and you were doing kind of the as I remember,
learning how to play guitar. I was learning how to sing in public.
Yeah. You were doing kind of the folk thing, right? The singer-songwriter sort of folk vibe, and now you're out of Manitoba, you're in Ontario, you're doing the hip hop thing. What is the trajectory there? How did you end up from being the folk singer in high school in Winnipeg to what you're doing now?
Oh man, I thought you said we only had half an hour here. there's steps to it. I put out a hip hop album in 2006, and that was in Victoria.
Okay.
So that was sort of how long it took me from when I graduated at Kelvin was 99.
Yeah.
So in that, me going out west was my time in university, my time figuring out whether I wanted to do literal jazz or classical jazz or drum and bass or trip hop or rock and roll.
Okay.
And then so that's where I started doing the rap stuff, living by the ocean, running through the hills. It has there's a magical feeling out there.
Yeah.
That took me into a different space, and I was away from my family for the first time, and I didn't know anybody in the city, and so the way that I reached out with my music expressed itself differently there.
For sure. Was hip hop always a thing for you? Was hip hop always something in the background you were listening to, or is that something that came later?
Not always. I'm a late bloomer though, so me having done that album let's see, when I was 25 is more my adolescence with hip hop.
Okay.
And my first influences and just even being at the gates of a body of work Prince or the Wu-Tang, where you're I know the greatest hits. I know there's 20 other albums that I have to like listen to before I even know what the landscape looks like. So it's like when it feels like there's more music than you can ever listen to in your life. That's where I was in Victoria, and I was there very briefly, and then basically moved to Toronto. The opposite of Victoria, like Victoria's got similar isolation to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Murphy, shut up. Murphy Brown is on guard dog duty. Good work, Murphy. Excellent work. It's probably just the neighbor, but yeah, I appreciate it. In Toronto, I came to be in a big city and be around a lot of venues and be able to see things. Like even if I was on top of it, I'd have to go from Victoria all the way over to Vancouver to see bigger shows. And I think I saw Cool Keith in Victoria. I think Inspector Deck wasn't allowed into the country this one time in like 2005 or 2006. But yeah, to be here and like just have access to that. But then when I got to Toronto, it was also when I had the opportunity to do a songwriting rock band project with my sister Nora.
Oh, cool.
So Nora's back in Winnipeg now. At that point, she was studying creative writing. At this point, she's gone back there. She teaches at U of W. She's teaching creative writing. She's teaching writing classes. Working on her second book or something like that.
Cool.
That's my first family plug, and people who are literally in Manitoba that you should follow up on. Nora, and she lives with the guy who made all the beats, or almost all the beats, on this release that I'm about to put out.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
That's the second plug. We'll get into him later.
Right. That's a little bit later on in the storyline, right? Yeah.
So like 2007, 2008, me and my sister finally have a chance to write together and attract a rhythm section and get experience performing and booking shows and figuring out recording and all that stuff. So that was like rock and roll adolescence.
Yeah.
They're like we had Strokes, and this would be like right after Kelvin, when you see me like into the Velvet Underground and into Massive Attack and all that shit I was doing, and then I was into getting back into rock and roll through the Strokes and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, and some austere like country punk.
Yeah.
She's a country singer. We keep it simple. Some people call it dance grunge. I think our drummer called it that. And that was Retro Radio, and that was like the beginning of me being in Toronto.
Okay.
It's hard to sum up 15 years of being
of course. Yeah. Well, maybe
it took.
To diverge from that a minute, do you think that kind of, like you're saying, you absorbed all that hip hop that you'd kind of missed out on when you were younger, in that as an adult you had your second adolescence of it? Do you think that maybe gave you a different perspective on rap and on the genre in general, because you were coming to it from an older age and not necessarily having been there for some of these records when they first came out?
I still do that. Like that informs my identity as a Winnipeg rapper. I mean, this is my first interview as a Winnipeg rapper, but that informs like binging McEnroe's Peanuts and Corn historical podcast, like all the anniversary stuff we did.
That was a great podcast.
Because they were what, 5-7 years older than us. That's like a generation when you're a teenager.
Totally.
Or when you're in a music scene. An art scene can be born and live and die in 7 years.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was all happening. Literally, I was missing out on that. My cousins are like, Wu-Tang Forever is the best album ever when it came out, and here I am figuring that out like 15 years later, about 10 years later.
Yeah,
it only took me 10 years.
It still holds up though, right? I mean, it still sounds good now.
It is the best. I'll stand by that. It's the Bach well-tempered clavichord of hip hop.
Yeah. I've never heard that comparison before, but I like it. Yeah, so it's a great record for sure. So one of the things I thought of when listening to some of the songs you sent me is that it just kind of connects to Winnipeg again. And I know I obsess over Winnipeg just by nature of the show, but one of the things I like about a lot of local rappers and prairie rappers in general is that they sound very much like they're from Winnipeg, or someone like Epic sounds like from Saskatchewan, or people from Brandon. And there's sort of this honesty to it and genuineness to it. They're using their own accent. They're talking about their own experiences. And then on the other hand, you have rappers who are pretending they're from New York or LA or Atlanta or whatever. And it always comes across as being fake when you're from Winnipeg or you're from probably even Toronto to a certain extent. So I like that you have the Winnipeg accent still. You sound like yourself rather than trying to putting on any airs of being from somewhere else.
Well, I've been through that. Everybody goes through that imitation stage of creating.
Yeah.
And you want to learn as much as you can from your heroes, whether it's a Wu-Tang or like a painting style or a production style.
Yeah.
But to get to the level I'm at now, which is like something I was consciously trying to do before the whole world stopped, and I had the chance to just to write for a year, which never would have happened for me in any other situation. But I knew what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like as good a performer as I was when I was rapping all the time. We're talking like when I was in Victoria, 2006.
Yeah.
I wanted to be writing at that level or at that fluidity and just as part of your life. And then I wanted to push beyond that. And that's it's not something you can do like in rap. Your instrument is like your face. Your instrument is your nose and your accent, literally.
Totally,
so unless like your skill is doing imitations, which probably pays more than rap, but I don't know.
It probably does, yeah.
You gotta I was on the other side of the fucking country. I was like up on Haida in what they call winter, but it was like it was blowing and it was rainy and stuff, and I'm in a cabin and listening to Peanuts and Corn, especially Fermented Reptile.
It's the best Winnipeg album, best Winnipeg rap album ever.
Oh, yeah. And there's like a big nostalgic for me because till I hooked up into that on Spotify the last couple of years, that's not music that you could find on YouTube or anything.
Unless you had the CDs, you were out of luck, yeah.
I don't have my CDs from 20 years ago. I moved. That's why I say I'm like James Joyce. I just moved like 4 times in 5 years. It's been happening for a long time. I've lost my CD collection many times over. The same CDs, I go out and buy them again. They're a little cheaper every time, but
that's kind of nice.
Rebuild the whole thing. So this album that holds up so much and like it connects me to like how old like we all were back then in the 90s.
Yeah.
And how relevant the politics of their lyrics hold up.
It's kind of sad, actually, that a lot of it still holds up because some of the stuff they're talking about probably should have been addressed, decades ago. But it's interesting how it's still relevant.
It is interesting, and this all like confirms for me, like knowing where my place is and knowing that I'm presenting myself to the world rather than like nudging into someone else's space.
Yeah.
Or stepping on someone's toes or trying to claim anything. Like accent. Yeah, I had this experience on Haida Gwaii listening to music by Winnipeg rappers, and even if you're not at the point where you're like, oh, that's Pipskin, oh, that's Gruff, like I know him, I know every voice. Getting there, but like they all sound like prairie guys. They all sound like something I even forget. Someone else has to tell me, oh yeah, you sound like you're from Winnipeg.
Yeah. Because we don't think we have an accent, right? We don't think we have an accent here, but as soon as you talk to someone from outside of Manitoba, it's very clear that we have an accent.
Well, or when you hang out with your folks at a big gathering and you realize you all have the same turns of phrase and stuff.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, I never aspired to sound like I was from Toronto or to, I don't know, assimilate to like the culture or the lifestyle here.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was ever a goal.
Well, Toronto obviously being so much of a bigger city than Winnipeg, and hip hop is huge there as well. I imagine it's got to be slightly harder to get yourself known. I mean, there's more people to hear it, but there's so much more competition, right? I mean, not that shows are happening now anyway, but when they were, I'm sure there's 300 rappers trying to get every show versus the 25 or so in Winnipeg.
Well, and this is what we're talking about. Like I came here, I had an album, the physical copies of it were lost, like, because they were in my car, got impounded when I left Victoria.
Oh, that sucks.
The boxes of the CDs are gone, but it was recorded, I had it, it was ready. I got here and I got into that rock scene, and the project Retro Radio was what my focus was on. I went out to like an open mic rap thing trying to meet people, and it was St. Patrick's Day, and it was all white Irish rappers, like all sounding like they came from New York, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Uh, that style and that vibe, and so I didn't vibe with that. I didn't, I don't know, find that scene here or make those connections in that world of music.
Yeah. Where does the Dog Dad Posse part come from? I mean, clearly you have a dog. We heard dog in the background here earlier. But what's the significant? I mean, as a dog lover, I'm happy to see that dogs are being represented in your stage name there. But
that is I guess about where I am personally
okay.
working on this project. When my partner do it, Christy was like in Vancouver. We got a camper van, so we're not trapped in the city this summer. But it's on the other side of the country, so she like went to buy it and drove it back this way. And while she was gone, it's just me and the dog, and I'm just going like where you lose track of time, kind of immersive writing. And any food you make is very quickly done, and like so you're just, do I need to eat or do I need to go to the bathroom? Is the only reasons you're not listening to beats, smoking a joint, like going over a draft again, trying to find a beat, just like working on that stuff. And me and Murphy had a couple rounds, and like it's about me getting like my dad's vibe with dogs, and why my dad loved those dogs so much. Me getting what it means to be like ready to be a dad. Not something I would have ever said before in my life, but like, you know, the responsibility for your little girl over here.
Yep.
Oh yeah, who's and I liked the phonetics of it. It's it rhymes with the BDP, Boogie Down Production.
Totally. Yeah.
I got a little hand sign I do, DDP, that I want to, you know, develop in like the visuals and the graphics and stuff.
Cool. Well, it's memorable for sure. I mean, yeah.
If on the EP, the last track is called Gutter Babies, and there's like stories about Toronto 10 years ago. There's a rap that is actually like 10 years old.
Okay.
And then there's the shout outs for the EP, and I shout out like as many of my family's deceased dogs that I can remember.
That's awesome.
Which is technically the Dead Dog Posse, but
right. Well, you know, you mentioned earlier about having the kind of ability to write during this pandemic we're all dealing with. What is that's one thing. I mean, I think a lot of people have experienced that, where they've either been completely they can't write at all because they're just stuck in this situation, or they've been really creative and really productive. But what is it like to be getting something ready to be released during this crazy time? Because that's a little different, right? I mean, it's writing is one thing, but actually having music that you want to put out in the world in a time when everyone's sort of dealing with this bizarre situation, what has that been like for you?
Well, I have to qualify that it's not like I do this all the time.
Right.
So it's not like I know the usual and I see what's going on now.
No, fair enough.
Different.
Yeah.
But as like a Instagram user, I can see that there's 5 new sponsored releases by independent artists coming through my feed every day. I know that swamps. There's a lot of people wanting to get back out there, anticipating that the little guys are going to be squeezed out of like opportunities for events and shows. And you know, I got in touch with you, but I'm sending out like a lot of emails, and I don't judge it by how many people successfully get back to me. Like it's like handing out business cards, trying to make contacts or make things move forward. It's like a 1% chance, or sending out like a music score, or like just like a random audition like that. I judge it though by like how many rejections you get, and people don't even have time to get back to me and tell me that they're too busy to have time to like do work for me, or like promote my release, or even talk about it. So there's kind of a scrambling, I think, of everybody trying to get back on top of the horse, if I can comment on that, because I'm just getting into the
well, it's a weird time to get into it too. I mean, it's kind of an awkward, you know, But yeah, I guess everyone's dealing with the same thing right now.
When I say that I've had a productive year, like it's important growth for me, and it's important to take advantage of opportunities in times of change and crisis. Like
Yeah.
there's a few different metaphors for that. Maybe not on this release, but on stuff that I wrote like in the last year.
Okay.
And that's just my philosophy. Like a really shitty situation or something that tells you your life is not going in the direction that you thought it was going in is also every time such a vast change of perspective on the world that there's a vast opportunity. Like you look at the Canada Day stuff that's happening
Yeah.
now, or the BLM stuff or pipeline stuff that's just gotten so much momentum in this time
For
because
sure.
like the focus can be put there and people, I don't know, people when you're like just stuck in your house. I don't know if it's you guys in Manitoba are like in a different position now
Yeah.
of like opening up, and like this weekend they got patios and like a lot more stores are open here in Toronto. So in Toronto now we feel like we're coming out of it and life is going back to normal.
Yeah.
But a year ago, it's just like um the city feels claustrophobic to me, but it's sort of rammed home when you have to stay inside of your houses and you
Yeah.
realize how small your apartments are and how dusty the street is and how you know how many trees you see on your way to the one store that you can go to get stuff and interact with another person.
Yeah.
And like I hope that that experience um, gave people a different perspective on things or like to reconsider their priorities. But when I say that I had a good year and like I got myself here, which is somewhere I didn't expect to be. But you know, 40 is the new 25
Yeah.
also. So
Yeah.
a lot of that. But you know, I spent a lot of time this year like just staring at the ceiling or staring at like watching the movies I usually can watch a million times, watching them and just like not even connecting or smoking twice as much weed as I usually smoke, and it's like not
Yeah.
even getting me baked anymore. Like there's a grind to it, and part of the reason like I can um thrive in these situations is like also part of the dog dad philosophy. Like my dad's like if he doesn't have to talk to people he's not related to
Yeah.
and his dogs, like that's fine by him. Like he's got enough family, got people to chat with if he wants to or wants to like make dinner for someone the rest of the time. So he's trained me in the pandemic lifestyle before I even knew it. And that's also like what the homage of that is for.
That's not a bad way to live, honestly. I mean, like, just family and dogs. Not a bad way of looking at life.
It's kind of like Thoreau, you know, you just like yeah, self-reliant man kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So where do people hear you now? I mean, I know you have all the stuff you're working on, but what's the best way to sort of check out what you've got already released and then to follow up on when you have new things out?
Bandcamp and SoundCloud. There's just some instrumentals and some older stuff on SoundCloud, but Bandcamp is going to be where anything that's available for download or for purchase is going to be.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Maybe you can edit in an actual date announcement. Like there's no release dates for this project.
Well, the good thing
I'm
about this being a podcast, though, is someone could be listening, a week after it comes out, or they could be listening a year after it comes out. And by then, they can look you up, and you'll probably have a bunch of things out there, and probably shows will
right.
be happening again too, right? So there's a benefit to that.
I don't know. I also in a year of specifically writing and not being able to perform, like not even uh, going to an open mic,
Yeah,
not even like having a bit of freestyle with friends. Like that's available to everyone most of the time, and all of a sudden you're cut off from that. Is yeah, I don't know. It had me itching for a while, and I think now I'm at peace about it. Like the recording went really well. The album sounds amazing. There's another Calvin guy on the record. Sebastian Knox plays saxophone on most of the tracks
cool.
on this EP we're putting out. I think he was older than us. I knew him from U of W, but
Okay.
he was a couple years ahead of us at Calvin. Um, yeah, also a dad. Also coming back to like performing, even though it's just in a studio in the middle of the pandemic, but that's like the most playing he's done in a long time.
Cool.
Like he's got kids now. He's got a saxophone related business where he works with mouthpieces and stuff. But that's been his focus.
Yeah.
For like the last 15 or 20 years. I was the guy I used to play like. I found pictures of us doing this like electro live instruments thing at Wellington. Was that a place?
Yeah. That's been closed down for a long time, but yeah, it's
it looks like it's a basement in like 2001 or something. But yeah, 20 years ago we used to do shows. I was some kind of bakery just off of Osborne. I was like a
the Braemar
bar for a while.
The Braemar. I love that place. Yeah, that place was awesome. I think that's an MMA gym or something now. It's definitely not a venue of any kind at this point. Yeah.
No, it looked like it was like a training place last time they were at a gym. I think that's where I met Odario Williams.
Oh, cool.
He was doing like a drum and bass thing there. And I was like, how come I never met you before? And I was like, well, don't have any black family, so there's no one that looks like me walking around. And, even if you know my siblings.
It all ties back to Winnipeg rap, though, eh? Everything connects to Winnipeg rap.
Bass. Even saying like I was young, didn't know how amazing what was going on was.
Yeah.
Or like I saw some amazing Mood Rough shows. Saw them like beatboxing after the show, outside the show. Like even when on the podcast they'll be talking about like that place on Fleet Street where they worked on all their stuff. Like it's like I know where that is. I know what neighborhood. Like it all makes sense.
Yeah. It fills in the blanks, right? To figuring out where these guys are coming from when you hear the background and you recognize the landmarks and the people and the records they were listening to.
Yeah, dude. Or like the stuff that the Garfield's been doing here, like Grand Analog.
Yeah.
And
those records are great.
And just like expanding and trying to connect to the greater musical world. Those are amazing episodes and conversations on what's that? That's my other plug. I'm advertising for McEnroe.
For McEnroe's podcast? Yeah.
Hey,
yeah,
it was really good. Everybody should listen to McEnroe's podcast, and McEnroe should give me whatever beats I want. That's
you should ask
my
him.
offer anyway.
In exchange for you plugging his podcast on my show, is that how it works? Yeah.
That's what I'm offering. Yeah, I feel good about putting that on the record.
Yeah, it sounds like a good deal. I think you'd probably go for it. Well, I'm glad you're still doing music. Did you ever? This is kind of a random question, but did you ever record anything way back in like the '90s when you were doing sort of the singer-songwriter stuff?
There's like I say, like the basement or the garage band version of that stuff then was like me and my sister and my cousin doing the covers of the stuff we rocked in. And I think we made one album, but I was the producer, so I don't know if it even counts as a proper recording. Using like a tower computer with like a microphone plugged into it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's how everyone did it. That or just having a tape deck in the middle of the room and hitting record and hoping for the best.
Oh man, remember when that felt so professional?
It did, yeah. Or 2 tape decks and you could do overdubs. That was like we're now rock stars.
Dude, you could plug anything into anything, and that's like what defines me as a Zennial is like these things mean something to me. Like tape culture means something to me. Secret songs like hidden at the end of an album, like that was real. That was like, it was a part of our reality back then. And now, like, if I try to if I try to collect too many boomboxes or have like a pile of tapes, I'm like, no. Like this is not what my closet is for anymore.
Yeah.
But like, just that object that like when we were born, music was in solid form, and now it's not. Like that's a huge transition that we went through. And like hip hop's part of that too. Like it's music that comes out of the technology, music that comes out of like the physicality of how it's made in the first place.
For sure. Well, most of my hip hop records I still have are on tape, and it's like 90s and late 80s tapes, and I still listen to them in that format, and it feels like the right way to do it, right? Even though I know I can probably hear it better quality if I went on Spotify or something, but I don't know. I'm one of those weirdos who's like amasses way too much physical media, and I still have all my old tapes and CDs and CDRs and shit from like back then, and
beautiful.
Yeah, it takes up a bit too much space, and I hear about it, but Anyway, I'm glad you're still doing music. It's really good to connect with you. One last thing before I let you go. Speaking of physical media, are you going to be releasing this EP on any physical formats, or is it strictly digital at this point?
We're talking about doing it on tape.
Yeah, makes
The
sense. Yeah,
the artist who's done, I think you can see it on SoundCloud. It's like a blue and white colored thing. Was just asking me like what size, like image or anything needed, or should she size it for tape? And we both agreed that was the way we wanted to go.
very cool. Well, yeah, hopefully people in Winnipeg check it out too, because I mean, I think that like you've been saying, a lot of the influences are coming from that sort of 15 years ago era of Winnipeg rap and prairie rap, and I think that people here would dig it because there's still, I think, an appetite for that kind of stuff. I don't think it's ever really gone away in Winnipeg. I don't know if Toronto is ready for it, but
well, yeah, I'm not that interested in that. Like I said, I never really found that toehold here.
Yeah.
I have enough friends and I know enough about the venues here that I can make my way around. But like I got Yai doing like committed to a feature next
Oh, that's
month.
awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
And I'm basically collecting beats from Gumshoe until there's enough in a pile that we can put it out. And that is why I'm super excited, because this is like it's the dream shit. It's like being a part of a music world that's always been really exciting and engaging for me.
For sure.